Welcome. David Levin here, Raising Your Game Today. This is Tuesday, so we're talking about the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. This week, I want to finish up our mental game lessons series from Novak Djokovic, the great tennis player. He gave an interview recently where he shared his 6 top tips for his mental game, and he has one of the strongest mental games ever. And tennis is probably the hardest mental game sport, so we are paying good attention to what he has to say on the subject. In the first episode, we talked about his suggestion to focus on your inhales and exhales, meaning box breathing. You breathe in 4 counts, hold 4 counts, out 4 counts, hold 4 counts. This is his main mental game tool during competition for getting out of his head and back into the moment. And that is job 1 for peak performance, out of your head, back in the game. So that's a great one to work on. His second tip was to watch your opponent and observe how they're doing, to look for things you can take advantage of and also give you more confidence that they're likely having the same struggles you are. I thought that was especially interesting, a bit of an advanced tip. Last week we covered tip number 3, use fear to your advantage. This is another advanced tip, and we actually talk about this in our Advanced Mental Game Mastery course, but it's another great one. So basically, rather than avoiding the things we're afraid of or worrying about them, he embraces them and uses that fear to make him play better. That's super impressive. It takes a lot of confidence and self-awareness to do that, but it's excellent. Because normally, when we think about something we're afraid of, it makes us weaker, right? And less confident, because it's like thinking about it makes it more real, more likely to happen in our minds. But he's not worried about that. I mean, he is worried. That's what he's thinking about. But the thing he's worried about doesn't make him more afraid. It's really interesting and impressive. Tip number 4 last week was to use your experience. If you've been competing for a while, and you've seen for yourself how things go, and you have that perspective, use that to keep from getting too upset when things are going wrong or too cocky when things are going well. Now, tip number 5, this is another fascinating one that I think really gives a great insight into his unique mental game. This one is, hear what you want to hear. Hear what you want to hear, meaning just warp reality to be what you want it to be. He tells a story of the 2019 Wimbledon final. He was a point away from losing, playing Roger Federer, and the crowd was against him. They were cheering for Federer. And you can imagine that being a bummer, right? Playing in a one-on-one sport and having the crowd cheering for your opponent. It's got to be so hard not to take that personally and have it affect your game. But Novak didn't only turn it to his advantage like he talked about with worries. He literally didn't let it exist. He said when he heard them chanting, "Roger, Roger," he heard "Novak, Novak" instead. Is that not the most amazing thing? At the peak levels of competition, if you're doing it right, you really are in an altered mental state of your own making. You're in your own world, in total control of your thoughts and impulses and emotions, or at least fully aware of and monitoring and managing your thoughts and impulses and emotions. And this is an amazing example of taking that to its ultimate level. If something is happening that is a negative, just don't even see it. Replace it with a positive. That's incredible. Now, one little clarification. I said at the peak levels of competition. Once the match is over, you need to intentionally transition back to a normal state of mind. And in that state, you don't pretend reality doesn't exist. You don't lie to yourself or to others. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying during the game, do whatever it takes to get into your peak mindset and stay there until it's done. His final tip is to get away from it all. I really like this one too, especially when you think about life at that level. It's so intense, every day, week after week. And the worry that drives that is that if you're not training, someone else is, and they'll pass you by. And that can sort of drive you nuts. To a certain extent, of course, it's true, but there's also a point where it's too much, and you get diminishing returns. So the ultimate trick is finding that balance. But the first step is internalizing that it's important to have refresh time in the first place. Recovery time is every bit as important as training time. We know that's true for muscles. It's true for our mental game as well. Novak's specific comment on this was, it's important to train, but it can be just as important not to train. Going for a walk, spending time with your family, reading, that helps with balance. So again, step 1, understand how true that is. Step 2, find things that do that for you. Step 3, make time for it. And in some ways, depending on where you are in your career, that might be the hardest part. If you're in school, there's so much time pressure as well as schedule pressure from your coaches. You'll need to figure out what's doable and also stand up for doing it. Other people may well not share your opinion about how important it is. It'll be up to you to make it happen. But it'll also help you a lot in being able to consistently perform at your highest level. So it's really worth standing up for. So anyway, those are Novak's 6 mental game tips. Watch your inhales and exhales, box breathing. Watch your opponent for opportunities and confidence. Use fear to your advantage. Use your experience to help stay calm and confident. Hear what you want to hear and get away from it all, now and then, to reset and refresh. It's easy to look at that list and think they maybe don't apply. Either they're too advanced or they're too basic or you just don't get what he means. I understand all of that. I'll just say again, tennis is arguably the hardest mental game in all of sports. He is one of the greatest, most successful players of all time, and he's still going past the age you'd normally expect, and he himself credits his mental game for making the difference. So it is well worth spending some time with these. And by the way, when I say spend some time with it, don't just think about them and move on. When you understand them, okay, I get that. With each one, it needs to be something you actually do on a regular basis, making it an ongoing part of your training and competition, just like it is with his. So you first have to understand it, then you have to practice to make sure you can do it and it becomes a habit, and then you have to keep doing it and working on it just like you would with any other fundamental. But if you're willing to do that, this is a great list of things to work on. I, of course, will also recommend our training, both the Raise Your Inner Game Sports Academy, that's the foundation of cognitive control training, and then our advanced mental game mastery course. Both of those help you make measurable improvements in very little time, and they are proven effective and even guaranteed. Check out raiseyourinnergame.com to learn more about those. And that is our series of mental game lessons from Novak Djokovic. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep up the good work, and I will see you next time.